about what we're doing right, what we could do better, what we want to plan for the future. So we're expecting to have a great time in San Antonio, but most of the faculty arrived at the airport about a half hour ago, and so they won't be here. I know a lot of students also indicated to me that they had other things going on, so that's why we're recording this. So yeah, I don't want to waste any time, so we'll just kind of jump right into it. So obviously, I tried to get at least a handful of students to attend a combined sections meeting 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C., and I'm glad that several students did do that. And this is just a chance for them to share their perspective. I guess the end goal is to maybe, especially those of you who are first-year students, to consider joining me out in Colorado, because the CSM next year is in February in Denver. But also just conferences in general. That's really the intent, is just to, get a head start, understanding what's new, what's current, what are people talking about in your profession. So yeah, that's really what it's about. So let's see I gotta see who's first off here. So Becca, let me activate you here, and you can, because I don't know who contributed this slide, but it may have been Becca. So do you want to just talk about what CSM is, and I don't know if you're the next slide as well, but you just kick us off.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, hi guys. So CSM Combined Sections meeting, you might have heard a little bit about it just through us students going. It's all over social media. Obviously, it's a really big push through the APTA as the largest conference that we have in the country. So the whole concept is to bring both professionals and students together to connect, learn, engage, and grow. And it's just a really cool opportunity, especially for students, to really get some great content and then just to network and connect with professionals and other students. So all 18 sections of the APTA, there's a huge range of them. You might have your special interests that you are connected with, but they host lectures throughout the day. So there's time blocks that are lectures, and then there's times throughout the day that are considered open session hours, that there's a lot of other things going on, and it's incredible and overwhelming all at the same time. But so throughout the day, you attend a couple different lectures, and then you get to go to special interest group meetings. You can go look at platforms and presentations. And then the exhibit hall has over 450 companies, thousands of things happening. So there's both companies that are looking to recruit you as a future PT, and then there's also companies who are showcasing their items. So whether it's rehab equipment or shoes or whatever, there's a ton of different exhibits down in the exhibit hall, and it just, again, gives you something else to do, things to look at, new gadgets that could be incorporated into your clinic. So there's a lot of really awesome stuff happening throughout every day, and you're so busy and you're running around everywhere trying to get to your lecture and get to special meetings and go see all the booths down in the exhibit hall. So it's just a really awesome experience. And then I think Travis is next. His mic was not working, so I guess, Travis, if you want to take it away, hopefully your mic works.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Can we go to the next slide here? There we go. And the next one. Yep. Okay, so like Beck was saying, there's hundreds of vendors at CSM. And it was actually a really cool experience because you get to go see like all the products that people are showcasing. And it's actually pretty crazy. Like just the range of the products that are being shown. So there was one had shoes and like insoles. You could find e-stim machines, exercise equipment, dry needling equipment, and literally the list just goes on and on. and it ranges just from new products there and get into clinics to help patients. It was also cool because there are also a lot of employers there, whether it's from large corporations or even smaller, more local companies. And it's really cool to go talk to them, engage with them, and see what their opportunities are and what they're offering to students. And there's also a lot of continuing education companies, so residency or fellowship. EIM was there, as well as AOMPT, and IAOM was another one. So it was just really cool to talk with all them and see what options we have as students going forward.
So, Travis, what would you say? Would you say that there were lots of opportunities for new graduates, given the interactions that you had there?
Yeah, there's tons of opportunities. So I know Athletico is expanding a lot. Core Physical Therapy is also another one that's expanding. All these companies are growing like weeds. So they're really trying to bring in new employees that'll fit with their team. So yeah, there's tons of opportunities for students and new grads.
Great. All right. Let's see. Let me find Mary Frances here. Okay, Mary Frances.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So one of the big things that stuck out to me with going to CSM kind of tied back to evidence-based practice and how we as clinicians are supposed to strive to function at that intersection of the three pillars of clinical expertise, evidence, and patient preference. And so I think one of the perks of attending CSM during our second year of school was that we had just finished our first clinical and we're beginning our second. And so with that being the time, it was able to kind of take the different sessions, and the two things that really stuck out to me was it made me think more outside the box in regards to what I wanted to do when I graduate, as well as it really allowed me to apply the common statement of CSM of how I can apply this to a patient come Monday morning. So I kind of just bulleted the different sessions that I had went to, and going to kind of just give a quick overview of what each one was and how it kind of related to how I'm applying it now. So I am currently on a clinical rotation specializing with performing arts rehabilitation. So that was one of the big key things that I wanted to look into going into CSM. I graduated as a dance major, and that's been a goal of mine to combine the two. So one of the first sessions that I went to was using evidence-based screening for performing artists, which was cool because it not only was for dancers, but it was also for ice skaters, gymnasts, and musicians, for professional and pre-professional. And that session really was applicable to my current clinical and really helped me be able to come back into the clinic on Monday and kind of further understand what my CI was talking about with regards to screening and what we're looking for as regards to injury prevention. But then I also was able to go to a session called Can Treating Geriatrics Be Sexy?, which really opened my eyes that I don't have to just use dance in regards to a professional dancer. It tied in the evidence base of using clinical outcomes such as the Berg and the Tug and tying it into our geriatric population's generation of their style of music and dance, and how we can use, the jitterbug or the cha-cha in ways to help these patients, reach the clinical outcomes that they need for being able to walk across the street and injury and fall prevention. So it was kind of cool to see that I can use, my different background in ways that I hadn't generally thought before. This summer, I was also at an inpatient rehabilitation hospital, and I quickly realized that I really liked treating the neuro population more than I would have ever thought during quarter 3 and 4. And so CSM really allowed me to kind of continue to learn and grow from that and reflect on maybe if that's what I would rather be doing when I graduate. So one of the sessions was It's All in Your Head, using neuroanatomy to maximize clinical outcomes for NCA strokes. And for all of you that are in neuroscience right now, it was literally going through the blood flow and the circle of Willis and how you can use that for clinical application and what to expect to see in patients. So it was cool to just kind of be able to sit back and use what I learned and what I'd seen in the clinical and realize that I really understood it more than I thought, and could really see how it's so important to know your neuroscience in regards to how you're going to be seeing and treating your patients. And then lastly, there was a kind of a persuasive debate on robots with the neuropopulation. But what really I took away from was how technology is advancing our profession so much, and that it's advancing quicker than research can really get out to it. They talked about how the time it takes to translate research into practice was 17 years. And if you think about that with regards to technology, it's expanding much quicker. And so it's kind of the debate on how researchers are trying to come out with the most evidence-based articles, but it's not coming out as quick as clinicians would like to be able to use it in the practice. And then my last thing that I think was a really big perk of attending CSM was that I was able to think more in regards of being a clinician than a student, because a perk of being at South College was the three of us were actually on a clinical. And so as my CI had talked to me about it, she was like, you're doing this as like it's a continuing education. You know, you're going away for a few days and then come Monday morning, you have a whole pool of patients that you get to just immediately use what you've learned in practice. And so it was cool because on Monday, you know, I was able to come in and teach her everything and, you know, provide her the information I had learned. And then she looked at me and said, you know, what's your game plan? Like, what are you going to be implementing today into your patients? And so one of the big sessions that I've been using was the sports medicine one about ankle and foot strength, mobility, and coordination deficits. And just realizing that, you know, most patients with low back pain or lower extremity injuries have something to do with their ankle and foot. And we've been really, you know, intrinsic foot strengthening and doing it in different progressions so that it's not just foot doming and yoga toes, but it's actually applying to when they're lunging and jumping and just regards to that. And then lastly, the one with hypermobility in the female athlete, you know, seeing a lot of dancers, they're very hypermobile. And so it's been cool to just see how that directly applies and what the evidence is and how you can treat them.
That's great, Mary Frances. What you know, you get the prize for being given the most eclectic choices of topics, because it ranges from the performing artist to older adults and a little bit of neuro in there, some ortho, and some sports medicine, and not to mention robots. So that's what's great about combined sections, as opposed to truly a continuing ed course where it's really going to be about a single topic. Here you get to cover a lot of different things.
For sure.
How did you find your knowledge in understanding what the presenters were talking about?
I felt I could completely follow along with what they were saying. A lot of the current research, I felt like we had been presented in our classes. But it was nice to see it correlate directly in how you can apply it in the clinic. And I think that's kind of going back to the three pillars. You know, it was a good way to be able, as a upcoming, you know, graduate, to be able to see how it's really important to stay at the intersection of those, instead of just, you know, just using evidence or just using your clinical expertise, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes it's good to go as a student or a novice therapist to go to these conferences, even if it's just to, you know, confirm that you did get good content in PT school and that you are at the, you know, the high level of understanding what the current best evidence is. And then hopefully add a little bit of nuance to that information, and especially with regard to how to put it into practice. So great. Any other comments you want to make about the topic?
I think I'm good for now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mary Frances. All right. So Becca, let's see.
Yeah. So I can't echo enough of what Mary Frances said specifically about bringing everything from all these incredible lecture sessions back into our clinical rotation and just kind of moving forward as a professional. So I attended more lectures based on sports and ortho. That's the clinical setting I'm in right now, as well as where my professional goals are. So I got to listen to some incredible speakers about things like neuroplasticity following ACL surgery, or incorporating pain neuroscience education into tendinopathy management, and have we been missing something? So I think there's some really awesome things that we got exposure to, but also, just like she said, we kind of knew what was going on, and now we can take all of that information and put it directly into application with our patients. So that was great. And then a really cool thing that my company that I'm currently at is I was the only one that attended CSM. So now they would like me to do an in-service about one of the sessions that I really connected with and present that material to my fellow staff members. So that's something that's super exciting as well. I also got to dabble in a few other things that I may be not so familiar with. So I attended a lecture on pelvic floor and women's health and cardiovascular endurance testing. So any opportunity, any area you think you might have an interest in, you can find it. You can absolutely find some information, and that's the leading members of that field giving you that best evidence to apply in your clinic. So it's really awesome to attend all of those lectures. But one thing that I want to kind of touch on is not only is there awesome material for you to learn, but there's also really great opportunities to connect, and kind of building off of what Travis talked about beyond professional employment opportunities. So there's three things that I thought were pretty amazing opportunities to connect both with professionals and students. So there's these socials that happened in those open hours. So times that you're not in lectures. It could be in the afternoon. It could be a breakfast before session starts. It could be a dinner after sessions are over, or it could be drinks after the dinner sessions are over. So it's always there's always something going on. So there's social hours that allow you to connect and network with members from that location or from that field or specific company. I know Travis and I attended the AMP social, and we got to actually connect with a lot of our South College faculty that were there, which is really cool. There's PT Pub Night, there's the ortho section meeting, the sports section meeting, and the Illinois Physical Therapy Association meeting. So there's all these socials and events that are happening, and it's there for you to connect and network with all the members of those areas. So that's a really cool opportunity. There's also special interest group meetings. So within the APTA, underneath each section, there's also special interest group meetings. So me and Travis also attended one of the pain special interest group meetings, which was just a really cool opportunity. And it actually was before the morning session. So just a quick early morning meeting. It lasted about an hour before our lectures began for that day. And it just got us exposure to where the pain special interest group is meeting, where they plan on going. We got some really cool information about their plans to make a pain special interest group part of the section of the APTA, as well as beginning to incorporate residency and fellowships in the pain science field. So it was just really cool to see how many things are kind of in the works. And a lot of it is also geared towards being or incorporating more student involvement. So they want students to come to these meetings and hear what's on the edge for their special interest group, and then to be more involved. So that was really cool as well. And then more specific to something that I kind of hold near and dear to my heart is there's a lot of student assembly meetings, and I try to be as active as I can on the student assembly. So I actually sit on the board for the APTA Student Assembly Advocacy Projects Committee. Our primary role is incorporating national advocacy dinners and facilitating them around the country. Normally I meet all these people online and we host our meetings and we get things done. But it was so cool to be able to connect with all these people from, countries from as far north as you can think to as far west and south as you can think. So we actually got to meet everyone that's on this board in person and to strategize and really plan our next steps. So that was a really cool opportunity. I also got the chance to connect with members of the Illinois Physical Therapy Association. And just because I met them in person at CSM, they actually asked me to write an article for them. So small little things like that just give you such cool opportunities by getting out there and advocating not only for our profession, but for yourself and making connections, which I think is so cool. And then another thing is the Student Assembly hosts a general meeting every CSM, and that just talks about their direction, their plans, and what they'll do to continue to incorporate more student involvement. And a big thing that I think is just really awesome is you as a student can attend this meeting and ask direct questions to the president of the APTA. Sharon Dunn is there. She's listening. She wants to hear what students have to say, and as well as the Student Assembly Board of Directors. So I think that really just kind of shows what the APTA is all about. And then I also put this link in here. This is just some really good information about some of the things that were happening at CSM on the side of all these lectures. So it talks about some of the Political Action Committee's next steps, the APTA's plans in opening their new facility. So there's just some really cool information that was either planned or organized or released at CSM that you can follow that link, and there's short little clips for all of them.
Great. Hey, Becca, since you're the last second-year student to talk, do you want to answer Jared's question?
Oh, yeah.
He basically wanted to know how you were able to get to go to CSM. It was not on a break, but maybe you could comment about what kind of communication you needed to have to facilitate going.
Yeah. So I think that most CIs are probably pretty awesome and incredible people because that's why they're CI. So it was really just a conversation with my CI before I registered for the event and just said, hey, I'm interested in going to this event. I think that it would be a really great opportunity for me. This would be my first professional conference. And I just asked if that was okay, be willing to make up time elsewhere as far as your clinical goes. But I think it's really just about starting that conversation early. Once you get in contact with your CI and know where you're going to be your second year or your second rotation, then I think it's just a matter of reaching out and asking. I don't think there'd be too many CIs that would say no. You're going for our profession, you're advocating for our profession and for yourself to get better and grow. So I think it's a really cool opportunity. And if they're not familiar with CSM or they really don't know what it's about, now you can have the knowledge to express to them why you think this is a valuable experience for you.
Yeah, I think my experience has been the same. CIs welcome that kind of involvement, but frequently they'll say, well, I may need to have you make that up at some point, the time-wise, but not always. And then a lot of times they'll say, as was mentioned, come back and give us an update about some of the doing, kind of a noontime clinic presentation about what you learn at CSM. And that to me is another way that students can give back for being able to attend. So great. Thank you very much. Okay, the next slide, Reese, let me find you on the list here. Reese, do you have your mic and camera turned on? There we go. Okay.
Can y'all hear me or no?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, cool. So I guess like my experience with CSM was pretty cool. I got to see a bunch of colleagues that I used to work for, and I saw a bunch of students who were shadowing at the clinic I used to work for, or that were actually like students with one of the CIs. And then now we kind of like all gathered together and got to meet and catch up. And it was kind of cool to see how we all like progress through life and where we're all at, like with the end goal still like being to kind of make PT the best that it is.
And, I went with Chelsea, and we kind of saw like a vast variety of things. We tried to choose topics that dealt with like the lower extremity, because that's what we had been learning and had learned at the time. But my favorite dealt with kind of what Mary was saying with the hypermobility, just because I thought it was really cool how it's one of the areas with females that's usually missed pretty frequently. They don't realize that like a patient is hypermobile until you start doing all these different tests, and they just recently redid all the research. So I don't know, CSM was pretty cool. It was a great way to market yourself. I mean, I've been getting tons of emails from tons of clinics and travel PT and anything from like neuro to just so be talking to, and imaging, and his wife teaches peds. So it was just really cool kind of to like take everyone's face from the internet and like see it in real life.
Great. Well, what was it like as a first-year student, knowing that you're just 2 and a quarters into your professional experience? Were you able to kind of follow the presentations that you went to, or how would you describe that?
Yeah, so because we chose like the lower extremity, I think that was probably like the best choice that we could have done. If we would have gone with anything like upper or like beyond our scope currently, that might have been a little bit more challenging. But we were like pointing out like evidence-based stuff and like sending like Snapchats to everyone and being like, hey, like we learned this, it's pretty cool. So I mean, I thought it was a good time, and I pretty much understood like the ACL one, and we saw like a hip as well, and like how to rehab a hip and how to rehab the ACL, and then how to rehab like female athletes. And then Chelsea is going to talk about like how to rehab like running and like their biomechanics. So it was really cool to like put it all together.
Very nice. Okay, Chelsea. I'm trying to turn you on, but can you click there you go. Okay.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so Reese kind of alluded to, I wanted to talk about the running biomechanics. So we had recently talked about the lower extremities in MSK 1 and 2, and I found this lecture the most interesting because other than the phases of gait, I am not a runner. I don't know anything about running. Running is really hard for me. So when I think about being in a clinic and someone coming to me and being like a great runner, or they're injured and that they have that desire just to get back to running. And so the first thing that he talked about was really all you have to do is decrease their step length. In doing that, you fix so many factors that led to like, their injury. So decreasing step length can decrease hip adduction, which in turn decreases internal rotation of the femur and the tibia. With that, you can decrease foot inclination, decrease peak vertical ground force reaction, decrease braking impulse, and decrease patellofemoral joint pressure. So I found that really interesting, not knowing enough about biomechanics of running. We haven't really gone over it yet, but just fixing that one thing will help basically like the stiffness and the poor proximal control of their like running mechanics. You can just fix it in one simple step. With that, they kind of talked about 3D motion capture is becoming so big. So taking a recording or using like PhysioU, for example, or Huddle, which are 2D apps, that's like a really big deal, so that they can actually sit and watch themselves and see kind of the small things, their step length, just little improvements that they can make. They really harped on mirror therapy, so just having them run in front of a mirror. I thought that was really cool, something I didn't even think about. So we're going to talk about food. We went to Capital Burger, and it was the best restaurant in the entire world. I ate this lobster bisque for 3 days in a row with a side salad, and it was phenomenal. Like, so CSM is way bigger than just lectures and information. The girl on the left is a girl I haven't seen in probably 12 years. We used to cheer with each other when we were really little. The girl on the right I went to undergrad with. She shot me a text and was like, hey, I saw a picture of you on the internet. Are you at CSM? So finding friends, seeing old friends, and the connections made are, I mean, it's very cool. People have sent, Reese kind of said, people have sent out, I mean, I feel like I've gotten 100 emails since CSM. And one of my girls who is a third year at Radford's PT program, she actually just got a job offer and accepted from a booth that she just walked right up to at CSM. So as a second year or at a traditional program a third year, I think it's a really big deal to get the connections. So I enjoyed that, knowing, I mean, I'm keeping track of these companies that have reached out to me so far. And it was fun to go to a new place. Reese had never been to DC, so we did all the touristy things. We took pictures and we went and got food and ran into friends of mine, and it was a really cool experience, and it's something worth doing. So
great. Yeah, that's wonderful. So yes, there is a lot to be had at this conference from a food perspective. We had a great dinner with many of this wasn't everybody that was at the table at various points in time, but many of you will recognize adjunct faculty and full-time faculty, and even some prospective faculty who were there talking with us. So great meal there. And here you see one of the faculty, first-year students. You will meet Bryant Seaman in just a few weeks, the clinical neuroscience on-site. But he gave a poster on some of his PhD work related to neuro topics, and Becca and Travis were with him. Speaking of Becca and Travis, I also got to initiate them in some Ethiopian food, speaking of food experiences. So I'm not sure, I think they enjoyed it, or at least kind of appreciated a different perspective on food and culture, but I'll let them comment on that.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was something I've never experienced before, so it was really interesting going there and seeing the difference in culture. So it was really cool, and it was fun to learn about too. It's
just one of those rare times when eating with your fingers not only encouraged but required. So yeah, and so CSM next year in Denver, right over Valentine's Day. So that should be a especially fun time, and I'm looking forward to treating people well. To some Colorado hospitality for anybody that wants to go. So again, we'll talk more about that in the future. But yeah, that is our overview of questions. I just want to thank all of you students for being willing to kind of put that information together. I thought you did a great job of kind of providing an overview of what it's like. So I don't think anybody specifically mentioned this, but this is 16,000 people. About 5,000 of them were students. They made the announcement on the last day. So, it's large. It's very confusing because some sessions are at hotels and other at the convention center, and the convention center is huge. And so I'm not sure if any of you students tracked your steps, but I'm guessing you put in a lot of them every day you were at conference. So, yes, I will open my home to anyone that comes. And yes, I'm about 35 minutes from the convention center in downtown Denver, but we will make that happen. And it will be party at the Notabooms. So, all right. I know you guys still have a few hours of your weekend left, so go enjoy that. Those of you that presented, thank you very much again. And for those that watch this in the future, I hope that you got something out of this and consider going not only to a national conference, which obviously takes some funds, it's not cheap, but consider going to some of your state physical therapy meetings, which for students can be very cheap, especially if you live near where that conference is. So we'll talk more about that in the future. But for now, that's all. Have a great rest of the weekend and have a great week ahead. Take care, everyone.